Hello, finally, and welcome to Hughes of the World. I'm Graham Hughes, and this is the... Oh, no, I don't have the world set up yet. Oh, I'll have to do that now, won't I? So thank you all so very much for sticking with me on the chat there. I was half an hour late getting started today because tech hates me like you would not believe. Had all my notes together. Had all my notes, and then it turned out that the computer didn't like the fact that my phone didn't like the fact that I was trying to copy and paste some notes. My phone kept on crashing, which was incredibly frustrating. I'll have you know. So I'm just going to turn this light around a little bit so you can see me a bit better. That's better. I'll say hello to Michael Warner. Diz in the chat. We've got Simon Smith. Anne Phillips, Sarah Davis, we've got Yuri in there. Thank you very much for joining us this evening to talk about one of my most favourite countries in all of the world, which is Egypt. Yay, Egypt. I love Egypt. Right. For some reason, it's not doing what it normally does on here. Okay, there you go. Egypt. Okay, it's not. It's okay. I don't know why today the tech hates me more than words can adequately describe, but it just does. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna head over to the Hughes of the World feed. There it is. There's the world. Okay, right. We're gonna start again. Hi, my name's Graham Hughes, and this is the world. Woo! And if we zoom in here, we can see Egypt, which is the country that we're going to be talking about today. Let's make the script really big so you can see it. Yeah, there you go. There's Egypt. There's Cairo. It's this bit up here as well. So before we get into that, I'm just going to start telling you a little bit. Do you walk like an Egyptian? Asked Sarah Davis. Yeah, I have to have a couple of drinks, definitely. Egypt is one of the most storied and influential countries on earth. It's a bridge between Africa and the Middle East. It has been a center of power, faith, commerce and empire for over 5,000 years, from the vast deserts, vast desert plains to the fertile Nile Valley, from pharaonic grandeur to revolutionary fire. Egypt has long been a country of astonishing contrasts. Contrasts? Contrasts. I'm gonna have a cup of coffee. Or a sip of coffee anyway. Oh my God. So Egypt is home to the only surviving ancient wonder of the world, the Great Pyramid of Giza. The other ancient wonders of the world being the Lighthouse at Alexandria, the temple of the Temple of Artemis in Ephesus, Hanging Gardens of Babylon, the Colossus of Rhodes, the Mausoleum of Halicarnassus, the other two, shit, the statue of Olympus, the statue of Zeus in Olympus, was that one of them? I don't know. It was a long time ago. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon. This is so lovely. Anyway, it's the only surviving ancient wonder of the world, and it's the only ancient wonder of the world that is still a modern, it's still a wonder of the world. Absolutely. Over 95% of Egypt's population lives on just 4% of the land. And we're going to get into this in the geography because it's a desert, unless you live on the Nile. Arabic is the official language, but many Egyptians speak English or French as well. And there is a unique local dialect, which is called Masri. Ancient Egyptians were some of the first to develop writing systems, medicine, mathematics, and, most importantly, beer. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Egyptians invented beer before they invented the wheel. True story. The modern city of Cairo has a population of over 20 million, making it the largest Arab city in the world. Egypt was the first Arab city to make peace with Israel in 1979. The Suez Canal handles roughly 12% of all global trade, including 30% of container ship traffic. Not great when a shipping container, a container ship gets stuck in the Suez Canal. Kind of has an effect on worldwide trade. Egyptian timekeeping gave us the 365 calendar day. And 365-day calendar even. And they also invented clocks powered by water. When I was talking about the fact that they invented beer before they invented the wheel, they didn't need the wheel. Everything was like on sand, so they had sledges to move stuff on sand, or it was on the water, it was on the Nile, in which case they used a felucca. They used a way of, a boat. So it was like a boat or a sledge. Try driving through a desert. You start thinking very quickly, this is a silly thing to do, especially in those soft desert sands. Very spherical little grains of sand out there. The Library of Alexandria was once the greatest repository of knowledge in the ancient world, and it was tragically burnt down multiple times. People blame the Christians, but it wasn't just them. It was burnt down multiple times. Every time there was kind of like a revolution and a new bunch of people turned up, the first thing they did was like, let's burn down the observatory so this never happens again. Very much like The Simpsons. Egypt has hosted 6 different capitals in its history, including Thebes, Memphis, and Alexandria. The top 10 tourist attractions include the pyramids, obviously, and the Sphinx, the iconic ancient tomb standing for over 4,500 years. The Egyptian Museum, which is home to Tutankhamun's treasures and thousands of ancient artifacts. Karnak Temple in Luxor, one of the largest religious structures ever built, even to this day. The Valley of the Kings even, and queens, the royal burial grounds of pharaohs, including King Tutankhamun. The Abu Simbel temples are the massive rock-cut temples built by Ramesses II near the Sudanese border. You know, the 4 guys and they're all sitting down and one of them's got half broken. That's Abu Simbel. It was actually moved in the 1960s, but we'll get to that later. We've got the White Desert, the surreal chalk formations shaped by wind, centuries of wind and sand erosion. The Nile cruise, the famous Nile cruise from Luxor to Aswan, a classic journey through temples, villages, and time, especially if you take a felucca rather than one of the big motorboats. I would recommend a felucca up the Nile. Mount Sinai and St. Catherine's Monastery. This is sacred to Christians, Jews, and Muslims alike. This is where Moses got the 10 Commandments, at the top of Mount Sinai. And there's also Alexandria's Corniche in the library. The modern library sits on the site of the ancient one. And Sira Oasis, which is a remote desert paradise with Berber culture, hot springs, and olive groves. The geography of it. Let's jump into the geography. Do you know what? I'll show you what kind of problems I'm having today with this. Right? Can you read that? No. Why are the labels gone mad? Look, the labels have just gone crazy. Why have they gone crazy? What is even happening right now? Why is it gone mad? Stop it. Stop going mad. You madman. You bloody buffoon. Oh, now it's just coming up with a big search Google Maps. I don't want to search Google Maps. In fact, if I type in Egypt here, Egypt, right, I want to get a little line around, because normally, when I go to an island or something, it gives you a marker around the country, but it doesn't do it for Egypt. Now, Egypt is famously the squarest country in the world, as all fans of map men will know. It's pretty damn square, except for this squiggly bit here, and because that's caused by the sea. But apart from the fact that this is almost a straight line on the left, on the west, and the southern border is almost a straight line. And then up here, it goes straight up here. It's the squarest country in the world. A few interesting little border things here. See over here, there's a load of dotted lines. Can you see the dotted lines? Yeah. So this is claimed by both Egypt and Sudan. Essentially, if one takes one bit, the other one gets the other bit, and no one wants to give up this bit near the sea. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird border, but there's been problems over that for quite a long time. Cairo is the capital at the moment. Might not be for long. They're moving it up the road to I think it's called New Cairo, maybe. Alexandria up here. That's where the great lighthouse was, and also the what's it called? The lighthouse and the library. Over here we have Sira Oasis near the border with. I'm really unhappy with the way those where's it coming up? Sira Oasis over here, which is near the border with Libya, And this is proper out in the desert over here. This area over the bulk of Egypt here in the sort of the southwest corner. This is known as the Western Desert. And if we scroll down here, we can see Abu Simbel. That's where those famous the temple of Ramesses II is, which was moved in the 1960s in order, my friends, to create this, which is Lake Nasser. Well, it says Lake Nubia there, but it should say Lake Nasser. Why are you saying Lake Nubia? You're making me look silly. Anyway, Lake Nasser, which is now called Lake Nubia for some reason. Oh, there you go. There's Lake Nasser. The biggest man-made lake in the world. Would you believe it? So if we come down here, we can see the border, and then there's Wadi Halfa over here. Oh, I guess it's called Lake Nubia in this bit because this is Sudan down here, and why would they call it Lake Nasser when it's named after an Egyptian president? But basically, all this, Lake Nasser here, this was all created by human beings when they dammed up the dam at Aswan. Oh, there you go. There's Aswan there. There's Aswan there, and there's two dams here. There's the old dam there. I think that's the old one. The high dam, yeah, that's the old one there. And then there is is this the main dam? Is this the new one? Historical landmark, yeah. There's a bloody big dam there. Oh, damn, they said. And they damn the Nile. So if we go up the river, we can go from Aswan, we can go to, and if we zoom in Aswan, we can actually visit Lord Kitchener's Island. See this Aswan Botanical Garden here? This is Lord Kitchener's Island. And it was set up to grow medicine plants for Lord Kitchener's conquest of Sudan. Well, he went to Khartoum and killed a bunch of people. But anyway, he set this up as somewhere to grow medicine crops. And now it is a beautiful botanical garden. And you can get a little boat over there from Aswan. And there's also a train you can get all the way from Alexandria to Aswan along the river. So the river is the country, okay? It's as simple as that. Like the country only really exists where the river is. Komombo is the home to another wonderful temple. You can see there on the picture, which is well worth checking out, as is Edfu, further up the river. So what I would recommend if you're going to visit is get the train all the way down to Aswan, go and see Abu Simbel, and then travel up the Nile on a felucca, visit Komombo, and then the next day visit Edfu, and then the next day visit Luxor. And spend some time in Luxor, because Luxor is home to not just Luxor Temple, which is fantastic, but also it's close to the Valley of the Kings and the Queens. So it's a good place to get to that. And then we can go up the apples and pears now, up the river here. You can see how green it is, and this like strip of green along the Nile. And if we zoom in a little bit over here, you can see this part over here between Quorum Lake. You've got a lot of green over there as well. And if we go even further, we can go up to Cairo, and then we come into this amazing bit at the top, which like opens like a flower, like a lotus flower. It's quite cool. And this is the Nile Delta. This is the Nile Delta here, and this is where like the Rosetta Stone was found at a place called Rosetta. We've got Alexandria, as I've mentioned. That's where the library is now. There's a new one. I don't think it looks as good as the old one. But then again, I never saw the old one. But I assume it wasn't made of concrete. And there's Port Said over here. And there's Suez, which is why it's called the Suez Canal. So let's have a look at the Suez Canal. Nice, easy canal to build because it was just dug out of the sand. There you go. You go in here and you truck along. And then you come out at the Great Bitter Lake over here. That's Great Bitter Lake there. And then you continue on. And see, they've got two channels here. So you can like overtake each other. And one of the channels like up and the other channel's down. To keep boats apart from each other. You can actually see the boats in the water on the photograph here, which is on the satellite photo, which is quite cool. And then you come out at Port Said, or Syad. Over here we have Mount Sinai, which is one of these mountains here, which unfortunately for me isn't labeled. Why haven't you labeled Mount Sinai so it could just look very clever? It's around here somewhere in between the V of the Red Sea. And if you've got to go across to Aqaba, you can get a boat from Taba over here to Aqaba in Jordan. This border with Israel is closed. Don't bother trying to go across that. You're not going to get across it, my friends. If we go down the Gulf of Suez here, and also you can go down the Gulf of Aqaba here, there's a place called Dahab, which is a lovely place to go and sit on the beach. It's got a beautiful beach, good diving there. Good diving. Also, really good for diving is Hurghada. Not so good for getting in a submarine, because someone got in a submarine, a Russians got into a submarine the other week, and the submarine just kept on going down, and now they're all dead. So maybe don't get in a submarine. But Hurghada, it's not a particularly attractive place, but it's good for if you want to do some diving. Now, the Red Sea here, this is the hottest sea in the world. It is sandwiched, as you can see, between the Sahara Desert, the Western Desert here, and the Arabian Desert here. It is absolutely boiling hot. It's like getting into a nice hot bath. It's very, very hot. But you know, cooler than it would be if you want to get in there like on a hot day. It's cooler than the air usually, because Egypt is, oh my God, it is hot. It is hot. Now, Egypt is in just an amazing place because it is the crossroads between the Middle East, Africa, arguably Europe as well. And what I want to do now is just, let me see if I can just do this. Yeah. So just have a look. If we turn the angle of the globe around, you can see why the ancient civilizations of Rome down here, Rome, and also Carthage, which used to be over here, which is where Tunis is now. You can see why they flourished, why Greece flourished, why Cyprus and Egypt and the peoples from over here, what are they called, the Phoenicians from over here. Why the Turks did so well? Because this was the motorways of the day. You could get on a boat. You could go to any of these places. Go to Tripoli. You could go to Carthage. You could go to Rome. You could go to Athens. You could go to Crete, Heraklion. You could do it all. You could do it all. I like looking at the map like this because it makes you kind of understand it a little bit better of like how it worked back in the day. Anyway, so there's Egypt, the crossroads of civilization. It really, really is, whatever. So yeah, just to go on about the geography a little bit, it's bordered by the Mediterranean Sea, the Red Sea, the Gaza Strip, Israel, Sudan, and Libya. The area is approximately 1 million kilometers squared, about 4 times the size of the UK. The regions include Lower Egypt, which is the north, not the south. You think lower, you think south. It's not. Lower as in it's lower down than the south, because obviously the Nile runs into the Mediterranean, so you're going downhill all the way to the Mediterranean, although it is very flat. You've also you got in the Lower Egypt, you've got the Nile Delta and the Mediterranean coast. In Upper Egypt, in the south, you've got the Nile valleys, the temples, and the tombs. In the Western Desert, you've got oases and ancient ruins. In the Eastern Desert, you've got mountains like Mount Sinai and the Red Sea coast. The Sinai Peninsula between the Red Sea and Israel. And the major cities are Cairo, which we just looked at, Alexandria, the port city with a Mediterranean vibe, Luxor, the heart of ancient Thebes, filled with temples and tombs. You can spend a good few days there just exploring, going to the Temple of Hatshepsut, which is well worth checking out. Aswan as well, the southern Nile city, and Nubian Gateway, the gateway to Nubia. You also got Giza, Hurghada, Sharm el-Sheikh, and Port Said. I think I covered most of them except Sharm el-Sheikh, which is on it's between the little V, 2 fingers, of the Red Sea. So yeah, the climate is arid and hot, with cooler winters. Well, it's cold at night in winter, but during the day it does get really, really hot. Cairo is around 35 degrees plus in the summer. It's around 10 to 20 degrees in winter, whereas coastal areas tend to be a bit more temperate. On Sinai and the desert interiors can drop below freezing at night, as I said. So, Take a woolly jumper if you're going in the middle of winter, and the time zone is GMT +2. The capital Cairo, meaning the victorious in Arabic, it comes from Al Qaeda, which means the victorious. It was founded in 969 AD by the Fatimids, and the population, as I said, is over 20 million. It's about 22 million in Greater Cairo, making it one of the biggest, not just cities in Egypt or of course, there's big cities in Egypt, not just one of the biggest cities, if not the biggest city in Africa, although I think that Lagos is snapping at its heels. It's also one of the biggest cities in the world. It's also home to the Al-Aqsa University, which was founded in 972 AD, the oldest university in the Islamic world. The Nile River is Egypt's lifeline. As you can see, it goes right through the desert, and there's green either side, and then there's just no green for as far as the eye can see. The basin is the most fertile in the country, and deserts dominate 90% of Egypt's territory, which means that there's certain threats from desertification, water scarcity, pollution, and urban sprawl. And there's a lot of pollution in Egypt. Oh my God! Spending a couple of days in Cairo it's fun, but it could be seen as quite an unpleasant experience just because of all the bloody noise and all the fumes coming from all the cars that are all sitting in a gridlock, trying to get past each other, and beeping the horns. The Red Sea coast is rich in marine biodiversity and coral reefs. All those coral reefs are also under threat because of climate change. They use the Egyptian pound, which is often symbolized by a E, and then the pound symbol that we all know and love. Inflation and devaluation have made Egypt a relatively cheap place to visit for tourists. Cash is king. Cards are accepted, though, in hotels and in some restaurants. They drive on the right, and the driving is improvisational. Can I call it that? Like, Cairo traffic is legendary as being a monster, an unruly monster, a beast. It's an absolute beast. And good luck. You know that bit in Indiana Jones where he has to walk across the canyon, and he has to put his hand on his heart and step out into the void. Yeah, and then he lands on. That's like crossing the road in Egypt, because the cars are never going to stop. They don't stop at traffic lights. There's no pedestrian crossings. If you want to get across the road, you've got to put your hand on your heart and just step forth and just hope that they stop, or swerve around you, which is fun. Okay, so the flag is a tricolour. It's red at the top, white, and black with the Pan-Arab colours there. The centre is the Eagle of Saladin, the symbol of Arab nationalism and the symbol of strength. The red symbolises struggle and revolution. The white is the purity of peace, and black is the end of oppression. The national anthem, Belady, 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 which means not my lady. It means my sugar pie, sugar baby. It means my homeland, my homeland, my homeland. And the lyrics are by Mohammed Yunus El Kadi, and the music was by a guy called Saeed Darwish. So should we have a listen? Does anyone want to have a listen? Should we have a little listen to the old music of Egypt, the old anthem of Egypt? Egypt national anthem. Okay, there we go. Belady, Belady, Belady. That is the maddest name for a national anthem I've ever heard. But yeah, let's go Egypt. I love my home country. Egypt national anthem. It's only a minute long. Well, that's good, isn't it? So here we go. Here we have, for your listening pleasure, we're going to have the theme tune of Egypt. 1 second. There you go. Whoa, that's a big flag in it. Nice big flag. Let's go. Vice. Sound isn't coming through for you. I don't know why. Why does my tech hate me today? Why does my tech hate me so much? Properties. Sorry. Defaults. Ooh, what are we doing here? What are we even doing here, my friends? Why are you why are you doing this to me? Right, USB. Okay, right. Let's try that again, shall we? That was good. Let's try to play you the National now. Do you want to listen to the National? Okay, so there we go. It's a solemn, proud anthem reflecting national unity, apparently. The population of Egypt is an eye-watering 111 million people. That's a 2024 estimate. It's the most populous Arab country, not the most populous Muslim country, which is Indonesia. It is youth heavy. It's there's over 60% of the people who live there are under the age of 30. And the urbanization there is rising fast, and Cairo and Alexandria absolutely dominate in that respect. Or urban-rural divide is very sharp, especially in infrastructure and opportunities. The official language is the modern standard Arabic, and that's formal. And then you've also got the Egyptian Arabic, which is called Masri, which is widely spoken and is quite distinctive. English and French are used in business, education, and tourism. Vernacular languages like Nubian in the south and in the Aswan region, and Beja in the Red Sea area, and Siwa in the Siwi in the Siwa Oasis. Siwi, they speak Siwi in Siwa. It's like the Basutu people speak Masutu in Lesotho, I think, or something like that. Coptic is still used. Coptic in liturgical Christian contexts, and the religion is 90% Sunni Islam. Christianity, Coptic Orthodox Christianity is about 10% of the population, and then you've got minorities like Catholics, Protestants, Shia, Baha'i, the Jews, which were once a sizable minority in Egypt, now all but vanished. The culture and lifestyle there, the hospitality is a core cultural value, and I know it stresses people out. Like, I can talk about this a lot more when I play my home videos next week on Egypt, and I'll go into the culture of it and what it's like to be in Egypt and why I enjoy it and why I can see other people do not enjoy it. Probably for the same reason. Family is essential in Egypt, often extended and tightly knit. Gender roles are still traditional, but urban youth are pushing boundaries. Daily life is shaped by religious rhythms, economic challenges, and cultural pride. Social media and satellite TV have revolutionized communication and politics. Football is a national obsession, and the star player is, of course, Mohamed Salah, who plays for some team from, I don't know, Manchester? No, I'm joking. He plays for Liverpool. Also popular is squash, weirdly. Like, Egypt dominates squash. The game's quite, when you play the racket against the wall, yeah. Egypt dominates that game. Also, they're big into handball, and weightlifting is a big thing there. They've been the host of AFCON, the 2010 World Cup, and the Arab Games. They have state-controlled and private media kind of coexist in the press and media. But there's been increasing press restrictions in recent years, but it's never been entirely free, to be honest with you. Satellite TV and online platforms remain dominant, and as you travel past households and neighborhoods on your way somewhere on the train or something, you will see a lot of satellite dishes. Key outlets include Al Haram and Al Masri, Al and also ONTV. The arts and architecture, I mean, do I really have to talk about the ancient pyramids? Yes, I do! I mean, they rock. They absolutely rock. Slightly in love. Fucking love Egypt. Why? Because of the pyramids and all the temples, the tombs, the timeless wonders. It's such a link with the past, a link with humans that lived 5,000 years ago, which just blows my mind. Also, there is a lot of beautiful Islamic architecture. There's mosques of Cairo and Ottoman domes and Mamluk minarets. There's also Coptic churches and desert monasteries. The sort of the Arabic calligraphy that you get, which you talked about some other country the other week, and I was saying about how in Arabic countries or in Muslim countries, it's against the rules to depict a living thing like a human or an animal, even, which is weird because they've got they've got an eagle on their flag, mate. But yeah, you're not supposed to depict things that could be worshipped as icons. Iconography is obviously frowned upon. So instead of drawing pictures of people, which is what happened in Europe with the Renaissance and everything, they drew these amazing, intricate patterns based on Islamic calligraphy. So if you go up to the Taj Mahal, you'll see that the markings up and down the walls, it's not just a pretty little pattern, it's actually writing. There's writing all over. It's like someone's graffitied very slowly and very meticulously by carving out the bit of marble that's white and then cutting out bits of black marble that fit and then squeezing the black marble into there's a proper word for it. I don't know what it is. Like, it's all writing. It's all writing. If you can read Arabic, you can read it. Yeah, there's a lot of modern arts in Egypt. It tends to be sort of visual arts, and graffiti is a big thing there as well. Cairo Opera House is the nation's top cultural venue, and the food and drink staples include koshri, which is their version of just easy street food, which has lentils, rice, pasta, and tomato sauce. It's really good, really filling, really nice. There's also Fal Mohammedez, I think it's pronounced. I just call it Fal Mohammed, but I don't think that's the actual name. That's stewed fava beans. And there is also Egyptian falafel you can get, green stew as well. But the street food is to die for. Give me a shawarma, give me a kofka, give me a shish tawuk. Oh, yes. Shish tawuk is chicken shish tawuk. It's like a kebab, but it's just better. It's just better. And then you've got sweets like basbouska, and you've got kunafa, and you've got zalabia, which is well worth checking out. The drink over there, I mean, people like the hubbly bubblies, but that's not really a drink. The shisha pipes, it's really big in Egypt. But they do like drinking their hibiscus tea. Sugarcane juice is something that you see quite often, where I've seen it where they've had like a piece of sugarcane, right? And they've had like a mangle. Right, and they put the sugar, and they had this thing, and they put the sugar cane, the stick, it goes through the mangle, and the juices come out the sugar cane, and it gets filtered down into a little sieve, and then the drink, the sugar cane drink comes out of it, and you can just drink it, and it's so refreshing. It's full of sugar. Also popular is Turkish coffee and mint tea, which I don't actually like. I don't know. I don't like mint tea. It just tastes like hot mouthwash. But, give it a go. Alcohol is legal but not widely consumed, especially outside tourist zones. And the festivals include Ramadan and Eid celebrations, which dominate the calendar. Coptic Christmas on the 7th of January and Easter are observed by Christians who live there. And then there is an Egyptian Spring Festival on Shah El Nassim, which is a spring festival with fermented fish, which is really cool. Worth pointing out that Coptic Christmas, like Orthodox Christmas in Russia, and also the Coptic Egyptian Christmas is on the 7th of January, not December 25th. And one of the big schisms between Ukraine and Russia now is that Russia still continues to celebrate the old date, and whereas Ukraine celebrates in Russia they still celebrate on the 7th of January, whereas in Ukraine they used to celebrate on the 7th of January, but now they celebrate on December the 25th in a move away from the Russian Orthodox Church, because people in the Russian Orthodox Church, patriarchs of the Russian Orthodox Church, have been basically saying, yay, this invasion of Ukraine is great. Sham El Nassim, this is a spring festival with fermented fish. Good luck with that. One of the other foods they've got is the most horrible thing that I've ever eaten in my entire life, which you'll see the fallout of which on the video when I show it next week. It's like a yogurt drink. Imagine yogurt but salty. Yeah, salty warm yogurt. Yeah, salty warm yogurt that's actually off. Yeah, most hideous thing I've ever drank in my entire life, I've got to say. Cairo International Film Festival and Biblioteca Alexandria are major cultural events in Egypt, and also Egypt has one of the oldest and largest film industries in the Arab world. The golden age was in the 1940s to 60s, with stars like Omar Sharif, not his real name, Faten Hamama, and Yusuf chicane. Modern films tackle things like poverty, gender, and censorship. In literature, Narug Mahfouz won the Nobel Prize in 1988, the author of the Cairo trilogy. And literature is deeply entwined with the politics and religion. Poetry, plays, and satire have been long traditions, often written in Egyptian Arabic rather than Arabic. The typical cost, it's a stay in hostels, eating street food, taking local transport. You're looking at about £20 to £40 a day. Mid-range is about 50 to 100 a day. Luxury is 150 plus, especially for Nile cruisers or Red Sea resorts. I wouldn't recommend a Nile cruise. I'd recommend trucking along on a fluker because it's just more fun. A fluker's like a little boat that just sails along on the Nile. Been around for centuries. There are some risk areas in Egypt, North Sinai, also parts of the Western Desert near Libya, and there is a lot of petty theft that goes on in tourist zones, and also bakshish, which means like a backhander, bakshish, which you'll hear a lot when you're in Egypt because everyone wants some money for doing that thing that they've just done for you. Someone picks up your bag and you don't want them to pick up your bag. You say, put down my bag. And they're like, no, I'm going to carry it for you. Bakshish. And you're like, no, put it down. And they're like, okay, well, you have to give me some money to put it down then. Bakshish. It's very, very frustrating. But if you can get over it and start to laugh at how ridiculous it all is and just take it all in your stride, it's fine. It's fine. Everyone's trying to get you into their shop. Everyone's trying to sell you something. Everyone wants something out of you, but it's cool. It's cool. This has been going on for thousands of years. It's never going to change. Never going to change. Just know what you're going into. And just keep a little bit of, humor about it, I guess. Political protests can flare up in urban areas, so avoid demonstrations when you're there. And also respect dress codes. This is really serious, especially at religious sites and rural areas. Travelers will turn up, thinking they're going to walk around an ancient Egyptian temple wearing a bikini. Don't do that. LGBTQ plus status, it's not officially illegal, but it is heavily policed. Arrests under these kind of vague morality laws have happened. So public displays of affection are risky. Discretion is strongly advised. But here's the thing, right? Public displays of affection between men and women are risky in Egypt as well. And you'll see a lot of young men walking down the streets in Cairo holding hands with their male friends. It's just normal to hold hands with your male friend. It's a normal thing over there. And if you're traveling in a hotel and they say, you're traveling as a gay couple, you're more likely to get a room together than if you are an unmarried couple staying together. I mean, it's not that much of a problem like it used to be maybe 30 years ago, but it's still in some areas, if you're off the beaten track and you turn up somewhere and you're not married, you have different surnames, you don't have a ring on your finger, they can be a bit funny about it. There's no venue, there's no LGBTQ plus venues, or there's no openly queer spaces, unfortunately. We're working on it. Sharm el Sheikh is probably the best place to go. You'll get away with it there. Talking about getting away with it, if you want to get to Egypt, there's many ways of getting there. You can fly into Cairo, Alexandria, Hurghada, Sharm el Sheikh, or Luxor, all have major international airports. You can also get a ferry from Jordan, from Aqaba to New Arabia, and also you can get a ferry. Well, I got a ferry from Alexandretta, which is now called Iskenderun in Turkey. There's a ferry that goes over to Port Said. You get in that way. You can also get the if you're coming up from Sudan. Don't know why you would be, but if you are, you can get the ferry from Wadi Halfa over to Aswan over Lake Nasser, and that's an overnight ferry. And it's a little bit. You'll see it on the video next week. It's an experience. Let's put it that way. It's an experience. There is a decent train network between Cairo, Alexandria, Luxor, and Aswan going along the river there. Most nationalities require a tourist visa, which are obtainable online or on arrival. It costs about $25 for 30 days, and extensions are possible. You need, you don't need to, you could do with having a hepatitis A vaccination if you go there. Typhoid, definitely recommended, as is tetanus. The tap water is not safe to drink. Stick to bottled water or just stick to beer. That's what I do. Avoid salads and unpeeled fruits. Heat stroke and sunburn are real dangers I don't know that many people who've gone to Egypt and not got sunburnt. So really, please, cover up, get your put your sun cream on. It only takes a few minutes in that kind of heat to burn. Public hospitals vary. Private clinics are better in the cities. And doesn't sound pleasant at all. It's what are we talking about? Well, I was there in 1990, says Simon, and wasn't as political as other Israel Arab thing hanging around. The high down was no photos due to high amounts of anti-aircraft defences. Michael Palin said going to Egypt was a nightmare because of all the paperwork. Yeah, it would have been for him coming in with a camera crew. But, if the BBC aren't going to stump up for a camera crew to follow you around, or, a Jeep to make sure you're all right, if it's just you holding your camera at arm's length, that's fine. There's also a huge Western tax. You pay like 100 times more than if you're white than compared to an Arab. Well, it's not if you're white, it's if you're a tourist. Yeah, that's true. If you're not an Egyptian, but you know what? So what? I don't care. People have gone to Egypt for centuries, for millennia. Was it? What's the name of the guy who did the Herodotus? Great Greek traveler, Herodotus. He went to Cairo, or whatever it was called before then. He went to Giza. He went to the pyramids 2,000 years ago and complained about all the touts. True story. So let's talk about the history a little bit. Let's get into it. So the first pharaohs didn't come around till about 2181 BC. But the actual Nile Valley has been inhabited not just for thousands of years, not just for tens of thousands of years, but, hold on to your pants, it's been inhabited for hundreds of thousands of years. 200,000? 300? No. 400,000? No, come on. 500,000? No. 700,000 motherfucking years. The earliest human tools found in Egypt date to the lower Paleolithic era. These early communities left behind hand axes, scrapers, and hammerstones in sites like Abu Simbel and in Komombo. By the Epithalocus, one Angry Pagan's going to shout at me for getting this wrong. The Epiphyllothic period, I think it is, which is around 10,000 BC, Egypt saw the emergence of semi-sedentary hunter-gatherers who began manipulating the environment, storing grain, developing, pottery, that kind of thing. This was the era of the Nabta Playa, a ceremonial site in southern Egypt where megalithic stones were arranged in patterns that may have tracked the summer solstice, possibly the oldest known astronomical alignment on Earth. In the Neolithic period, from around 5,500 BC, Nile Valley communities began domesticating animals and that. They cultivating emmer wheat and barley and building mud brick villages. Early ceramics, woven textiles, and decorated pallets appear at this stage. These farming communities, they grew and clustered into regional cultures. And the Fayum was a culture in Lower Egypt. The Badarian was a culture in Upper Egypt, noted for its black top red pottery, ivory figurines, and some of the earliest evidence of social stratification. Yeah, they invented the class system, motherfuckers. And don't forget, Upper Egypt is not the top of the map. Upper Egypt is the bottom of the map because it's higher up in terms of elevation above sea level. The Nakada cultures were especially influential, and they introduced funeral masks, copper tools, sophisticated burial architecture. Nakada, there were three of them. There was Nakada 1, Nakada 2, and then Nakada 3. Nakada 3 is sometimes called the proto-dynastic period, as it sees the first royal iconography, Syrinx, and possibly early hieroglyphics. Trade networks were already vast. Obsidian from Ethiopia, lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, and cedar from Lebanon was found. Gold from Nubia entered Egypt in exchange for grain, linen, and papyrus. So, around 3100 BC, Upper Egypt centered around Nekhen or Hierakonpolis and Abydos. They expanded northwards, ultimately conquering and unifying Lower Egypt. The unifier was likely named Narmer, and that's from the Narmer palette, a richly decorated ceremonial artifact showing him wearing both the red crown of Lower Egypt and the white crown of Upper Egypt together. So the crowns were combined, and he's seen to be the first pharaoh, but there's arguments about it, and there is someone who came possibly a bit earlier, possibly played by the Rock, Dwayne Johnson, and he was called the Scorpion King. I'm not even kidding, because they're in the cartouche. So when you look at hieroglyphs, right, you know, they're all like symbols and they're all in a line going down, right? A cartouche is like an elongated kind of rectangle with soft corners, and then there's a little line underneath it, and that denotes a royal name. And they reckon there's a fragment of something that refers to something to do with the scorpion. So they've said, oh, well, there might have been someone before Narmer. But we do know that Narmer established the first Egyptian dynasty and the concept of divine kingship. The pharaoh was not just a ruler. He was the embodiment of Horus. I say he, sometimes it was a she. They were the embodiment of Horus, the falcon god, and would become Osiris in death. This unification set the stage for 3,000 years of pharaonic civilization. 3,000 years. Wow. So from 2686 to 2181 BC was known as the Pyramid Age. This was Egypt's first golden age. So there's three main eras of ancient Egyptian pharaohs. There is the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. The Old Kingdom were the guys who built the pyramids. By the time the Middle Kingdom came along, they had no idea how to build pyramids. The technology, the know-how, the understanding, the documents that explained how they did it, they hadn't got a clue. The pyramids were as much of a mystery to the Middle Kingdom in Egypt as they were to the Victorians. Quite staggering when you think about it. So yes, the capital in the Golden Age was Memphis, as in Elvis, and it was at the junction of Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt, so it was right in the middle of the country, and it symbolized national unity. The language they used was Old Egyptian, the earliest recorded stage of the Egyptian language, which was written in hieroglyphs, and later hieratic script, I think it's called, for everyday use. So that was more like what we write with rather than drawing pictures. At the time as well, like you go and have a look at old tombs in Egypt and old things, right? So essentially, here's something that is mad, right? So in the Old Kingdom, when they carved out hieroglyphs into the wall, they wouldn't carve the hieroglyphs into the wall. They would carve around the hieroglyphs, so the hieroglyphs actually have a relief, okay? Whereas later on, they forgot how to do that or couldn't be asked. I don't know. But then it became indented. So like you can tell when a hieroglyph was from, whether it comes out of the wall, which is older, or whether it goes into the wall, which is younger. The religion at the time was dominated by Ra, the sun, the god of the sun, and Osiris, who was the god of the dead. The king was the intermediary between gods and mortals, and the cosmic balance of Maat, that's M-A-A-T, depended on his rule. The Old Kingdom is synonymous with pyramid building, especially during the 3rd to the 6th dynasties. Imhotep visa to the pyramid, to the pharaoh Doja. He designed the first step pyramid at Saqqara. If you watch the video next week, you'll see the step pyramids at Saqqara, or the step pyramid at Saqqara, around 2670 BC. This was the first monumental structure built entirely from cut stone. The fourth dynasty saw the constructions of the true pyramids, which are the ones that don't have a step. They're just pyramids. And Khufu's Great Pyramid of Giza, the tallest structure on Earth for over 3,800 years. That is just mind-blowing. That is just until like the 19th century. Khafra's pyramid, flanked by the Great Sphinx, a colossal lion-bodied guardian carved from bedrock. Menaker's pyramid, smaller but still monumental. These pyramids were part of a vast mortuary complex, complexes all over the country, which included valley temples, causeways, and boat pits. Construction required tens of thousands of workers, mostly paid laborers, not slaves, working in rotating teams. Graffiti in workers' quarters reveal names like the Drunkards of Khufu, showing camaraderie rather than coercion. Egypt was a centralized autocracy at the time, run from Memphis by the pharaoh and his bureaucracy. The vizier, the chief minister, oversaw administration, tax, and justice. Egypt was divided into 20 provinces, which were called nomes, which were each governed by a nomarch. You're a total nomarch, mate. But your gnome, looking after... Record keeping became increasingly advanced. Grain collection, construction labor, and religious donations were logged meticulously using hieroglyphic and hieratic writing. And I've got to say, like, one of the things I love about the ancient Egyptians is they wrote everything down. Like, so many things were documented. Like, day-to-day life was documented. And then you've got the pyramid text inscribed inside royal tombs at Saqqara during the 5th and 6th dynasties are the earliest religious texts known, spells and incantations for the king's journey into the afterlife, or what's known as the Book of the Dead. Egyptian art was formal, symbolic, and religiously charged. Statues followed strict rules of proportion and posture, left foot forward, arms rigid, expression serene. Wall paintings decorated scenes of agriculture, animal husbandry, offerings, and ceremonies. The use of colour symbolism was common in ancient Egypt. Green meant rebirth, red was for power and chaos, and black was for fertility and the Nile, and gold was for divinity. Craftsmen excelled in jewellery, gold, and carnelian, is it? I don't know, something like that. Working with all kinds of precious stones and materials in order to just make these amazing artifacts of the time. Cosmetics were also a big thing there. The eyeliner, famous Kohl eyeliner, scented oils, and red ochre lipstick. This was also the time that they sussed out that if you used vegetable dyes or organic dyes to paint the walls, those dyes would slowly lose their colour. The paints would lose their colour, so they moved more into chemical paints to paint their artifices, which was pretty cool. Diz says, like fine wine, we improve with age. Yeah. Did Doja invent the cat religion? Yeah. Well, it's more like Zoza. It's more like Zoja. It's like Zojar, but there's different ways of spelling it. You can spell it like DJ, so Dojas, I don't know, something like that. Ancient Egypt was never a slave-owning economy. There was a few, but only 1 or 2 per town. Most labourers were paid in grain and beer. Yeah. I mean, it was a great time to be alive. You only had to work half the year. The rest of the time, you could waste, I don't know, building temples and things. Papyrus scrolls, which were used for writing accounts, hymns, and medical texts. And Egypt had a very strict social hierarchy. You had the pharaoh at the top, then you had the nobility, priests, scribes, craftsmen, and then traders, and then at the bottom, peasants. Women had notable rights compared with other ancient societies. They could own property, initiate divorces. They could serve as priestesses or managers. Children were considered a blessing, and boys were often trained in trades or writing schools if their family could afford it. Marriage was monogamous for commoners, but polygamous amongst royalty. Religion pervaded every level of life. People prayed to the household gods like Bez, who was the protector of families, and also went around like this. And also Tauret, or Toret, the goddess of childbirth. The Nile's annual flood was the engine of the Old Kingdom economy, depositing black silt that made the soil amongst the most fertile in the ancient world. The year was divided into 3 seasons. You had the flooding season, which was called Akat. You had the growing season, which was called Perat, or Peret. And you also had the harvest season, which was called Shamu. As in, like the whale. Wasn't there a whale called Shamu? Farmers grew wheat, barley, flax, and raised cattle. They raised sheep and goats and also pigs. State-controlled agriculture ensured that the Pharaohs' granaries were always full, essential during poor flood years, as told in the Bible about Jacob's Technicolor Dreamcoat. Joseph, sorry, not Jacob's. Joseph, oh God, don't get me Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals mixed up here. Egypt traded gold, copper, incense, ebony, and panther skins even, with Punt, which is part of what we now call Somalia, Nubia, which is what we now call Sudan, and the Levant, which is what we now call Israel, Lebanon, that area. From the 6th century, the 6th dynasty, saw Egypt's central government gradually lose control to powerful nomarchs. That's just like, I really loved the fact that I got nomarchs. And long reigns, including Pepi II, who ruled for over 90 years, weakened institutions. Low Nile floods combined with possible climate change caused famine and depopulation. Tomb inscriptions from this period reflect chaos, banditry, and the collapse of royal prestige. When you hear about tombs being raided, the pyramids, the temples, the Valley of the Kings. Sorry, they hadn't started that yet. A lot of these temples were actually raided in antiquity. That this was about the time that they were raided, long before the British turned up and went, "Oh, can we put this in our museum, please?" This ushered in a 140-year period known as the First Intermediate Period, a time of civil strife and warring city-states, and the rise of new centres of power, like in places like Heracleopolis and Heracleopolis, easy for you to say. Heracleopolis, that's better. And Thebes, which is a lot easier to say. The First Intermediate Period went from around 2181 to 2055 BC, and it was also known as the Dark Ages of Egypt, or the Dark Age of Egypt, even though it was far more dynamic and regionally rich than the name suggests. After the long reign of Pepi II in the 6th century, central authority in Memphis crumbled, and Egypt fractured into a patchwork of warring regional kingdoms, each led by nomarchs, each led by regional governors who had once served the pharaoh. There was no single capital. Instead, rival centers, not capitals, but rival centers rose to power. And Heracleopolis in Middle Egypt. There was Thebes in the south, and there was drought and disaster. Climate evidence suggests a period of severe drought around this time, causing low Nile floods, famine, and economic collapse. Tomb inscriptions from the era speak of lawlessness and starvation. Here's a quote: "The dead are thrown into the river. Men slaughter each other like beasts." Burial practices became more democratic, not just for pharaohs, but for provincial elites. They began building these elaborate tombs and adopting funerary texts, which were once reserved for royalty. There was also a cultural shift where literature flourished despite the chaos. Works like the Instruction of Meri Kare, a text advising the Heracleopolitan king on just and fair rule. The dialogue of a man with his ba, which meant soul, so a dialogue of a man with his soul, a philosophical reflection on life and death. These writings show a more personal, introspective tone than the triumphalism of Old Kingdom texts. So then we head into the Middle Kingdom, which is from 2055 to 1650 BC, often seen as Egypt's second golden age, combining Old Kingdom grandeur with new ideological and administrative sophistication. This led to the rise of Thebes around 2055 BC under Mentuhotep, the second of Thebes, who defeated the Heracleopolitan rivals, Heracleopolitan rivals, reunified Egypt and founded the 11th dynasty. He moved the capital south to Thebes, shifting political gravity away from Memphis. Mentuhotep styled himself not just as a king, but as a divine restorer who had defeated chaos and reunited the two lands. Mentuhotep II built his mortuary complex at Deir al-Bahari, a forerunner of New Kingdom temple tombs, blending pyramid and cliffside chapel. The ideas of a pyramid and also a cliffside chapel. Later kings revered pyramid building, but on a smaller scale with mud brick cores instead of pure stone because they didn't know how to do it. Thebes became filled with elaborate private tombs decorated with scenes of everyday life, farming, fishing, dancing, all that kind of stuff. A vivid social snapshot of the time. The 12th dynasty began by Amenemhat the first, restored and reformed Egypt's bureaucracy, and he created a co-regency system to prevent succession disputes. He reined in the nomarchs and power, and he expanded control into Nubia, right down into what's now Sudan. So you can actually visit there's pyramids in Sudan, like really, really far down. There's actually more pyramids in Sudan than there is in Egypt. Fun fact. But he also built a new capital, because, why not? Ichtaway, which is near modern Lisht. And Egypt's borders were fortified to the south. Buttresses like Buhen and Semna guarded the Nile against Nubian incursions. To the east, the walls of the ruler in the delta defended against Asiatic raiders. And the Middle Ages, the Middle Kingdom, was a real age of exploration. Punt in modern Somalia, Eritrea, was visited for incense and exotic animals, expeditions into the Sinai Peninsula for turquoise and copper, and there were mining operations in the eastern desert around this time. Trade was formalized and taxed. The state managed massive record-keeping projects using papyrus scrolls, ink pens, and scribes. This is in the 1600s BC. I'd be impressed at this stuff in the 1600s AD, mate. Religion, Thebes elevated its local god, Amun, combining him with the sun god Ra to create Amun-Ra, later the supreme deity of Egypt. A new type of funerary text emerged, the coffin text, spells and incantations inscribed inside of wooden coffins available for non-royals. The idea was you woke up dead and then you had all the instructions of what to do next on the inside of your coffin. The burial for the elite became more democratic and personalized around this time. Literature reached high levels of sophistication. The tale of Sinuhe, an epic story of an Egyptian official who flees to Canaan and longs to return. There was also the eloquent peasant. A poor man delivers 9 speeches demanding justice from corrupt officials. Themes include justice, order, loyalty, and the role of the king, mirroring the anxiety of a society that had recovered from collapse, but still held that idea in the collective memory. Then it led to a period in the late 12th and 13th century, 13 dynasties of another period of decline and fragmentation. This was marked by shorter, less stable reigns, a return of powerful regional lords, an influx of Asiatic peoples into the delta, later known as the Hyksos, and also the Hyksos, and also Egypt entered the second intermediate period around this time, and it was called like the second dark age, pretty much, and it paved the way for foreign rule for the first time in Egypt's long and storied history. Even back then, the second intermediate period from 1650 to 1550 BC. It was a time of division, foreign rule, and brewing resistance. Egypt fragmented again after the fall of the Middle Kingdom's 13th dynasty. Local rulers in Thebes and a wave of foreign dynasties in the Delta battled for supremacy. And the Hyksos, the Semitic-seeking invaders from the Levant, possibly linked with Canaanites or Amorites. And then there was also the Hyksos. They established the 15th dynasty of Avaris, and in the Nile Delta, and they introduced horse-drawn chariots, composite bows, new bronze weapons, advanced fortifications, musical instruments, and deities from Western Asia. And though seen as barbarian invaders in later Egyptian propaganda, the Hyksos adapted much of Egyptian culture and ruled as pharaohs. Meanwhile, southern Theban kings of the 17th century retained power in Upper Egypt and launched a resistance. There was the War of Liberation. Kings like Sekenere and Comoros fought brutal campaigns against the Hyksos. Amose I, that was Kamose's brother, finally expelled the Hyksos around 550 BC, destroying the city of Avaris and chasing them into southern Canaan. Egypt was once again unified after 100 years of strife and launched into its most militaristic and imperial phase, the New Kingdom. So, the New Kingdom ran from 1550 to 1070 BC. This was Egypt's imperial zenith, an era of warrior pharaohs, global diplomacy, and monumental splendor. The 18th dynasty was the founders of the empire of Amose I, and they re-established Theban dominance, centralized administration, and restored temples that had been desecrated during the Hyksos rule in the north. Egyptian expansionism exploded. Military campaigns were carried out into Nubia, Canaan, and Syria. Massive wealth and slaves, for the first time properly, were brought back into Egypt. Thutmose III, sometimes called the Napoleon of Egypt, conducted at least 17 campaigns during his reign, establishing Egypt's largest empire, reaching the Euphrates River. The empire was held together by military might, marriage alliances, and diplomacy. Tribute from subject states poured into Egypt, particularly gold from Kush, which is Nubia, now known as Sudan. Hatshepsut, the first female pharaoh, came on the scene at this time, one of the most extraordinary rulers in ancient history. She reigned as a co-regent and then as a sole ruler, dressing and behaving as a man to reinforce her legitimacy. She was focused on trade, building projects, and religious patronage. She built the stunning mortuary temple at the Deir Bahari, one of the most elegant structures in the whole of Egypt, and that's saying something. The religion and the rise of Amun-Ra around this time, the Amun priesthood of Thebes became immensely powerful during this period. Amun-Ra was now considered the king of the gods, merging solar theology with Theban religious traditions. Temples at Karnak and Luxor were expanded to colossal scale, filled with obelisks, colonnades, and sacred lakes. Akhenaten, he was originally known as Amenhotep the fourth. He renamed himself Akhenaten and founded a monotheistic cult, worshipping the Aten, the sun god. He closed temples of Amun and moved the capital to Akhenaten, which is modern Amarna. Now, he introduced a radical art style with elongated head, relaxed family scenes, sensuous depictions. His rule was deeply unpopular with the priesthood and successors, and after his death, the old gods returned. So, what's really interesting is that Egypt is the birthplace of monotheism. So up to this point, nearly every culture in the world worshipped multiple gods. Gods for the thunder, gods for the sun, gods for the moon, gods for the waves, gods for, whatever natural phenomenon you can name it, we probably had a god for it. He was the first person that we know of who said, right, there's only one God, and it's Aten, the god of the sun and love. And him and his wife, Nefertiti, their rule seems, we have to read between the lines quite a lot here, because obviously history is written by the people who came after and then destroyed the history that came before. But what remains of their works while they were alive seems quite amazing. They built an entire city, which was razed to the ground after they died, which we'll get into in a moment. But I just want you to consider for a moment the fact that this is around the time that it looks like there was this is a little while before Ramesses II, who was the pharaoh of the Bible, who was picking on a group of people living in Egypt who were monotheists, who left Egypt to go and live in the Levant. See what I'm getting at here? Let's get into it in a moment. So anyway, Akhenaten and Nefertiti had a son who you may have heard of. He's a little known pharaoh by the name of Tutankhamun. He was Akhenaten's young successor. He changed his name to Tutankhamun and restored the traditional gods, probably because he was forced to by the priests who were all out of a job. So if you're a priest and you had a temple to Ra or to Ammon, and they're like, no, you can't worship them anymore. It's just Aten now. You're like, well, I'm out of a job. Do you see the problem here? So it's very, very likely that after Akhenaten died, after saying, no, there's not lots of gods, there's one God, God of love and the sun. You can see how the pharaohs might have taken this young boy, the boy king, Tutankhamun, who was a sickly child by all accounts, and said, hey, you ever thought of going back to the old gods? And he's just gone, yeah, all right. And although Tutankhamun is a minor king, but his rule was short, but also he brought back the old gods. So it's not as though his rule wasn't monumental in some ways. But his tomb's discovery in 1922 by Howard Carter, almost entirely intact, made him globally famous. That's never happened since. It's never happened before. Never happened since. A tomb that was absolutely intact from the day it was sealed for 3,000 years earlier. The tomb contained 5,000 artifacts, including his golden death mask. Horemheb, a military general, restored stability and purged Akhenaten's memory from history. Well, at least he tried to, because obviously we're still heard of him now, so he wasn't very successful at that, was he? That led into the 19th dynasty, military resurgence, and Ramesses the Great, Ramesses II as he was. We had Seti I, who reigned in the territory in the Canaan and Syria, building lavish temples at Abydos, say it right, again. And then came Ramesses II, the Great, ruled for 66 years, known for the Battle of Kadesh in 1274 BC against the Hittites, the earliest recorded battle with detailed tactics, ending with the first known peace treaty in history. We also had massive construction projects, the Ramesseum, Karnak, Luxor, and the temples of Abu Simbel, which is where, he's carved into a cliff. That's him. That's Ramesses II of the Bible fame. Dozens of wives, hundreds of children, probably about 800 children, and endless statues. When I was being taken around somewhere, I can't remember where, probably Abu Simbel, by an Egyptian guide, he said, yes, some people think that Ramesses may have had up to 800 children. And he said, yes, but there's only 365 nights in a year. So, it's not that many for a 66-year rule. Ramesses was worshipped as a god in his lifetime. But then came decline and invasions. Successors to Ramesses II struggled to maintain his empire, and Egypt was struck by invasions of the Sea People, possibly displaced Mycenaeans or Sardinians or others, economic collapse, drought and famine, labor strikes at Dari Medina, the village of the royal tomb builders, the first recorded workers' strike in history. They invented going going on strike. Is there nothing the Egyptians did not invent? The capital moved to the Delta at Pi-Ramesses, and by the end of the dynasty, Egypt had lost control of its empire and entered another fragmented age. This led to the late period, which ran from about 1077 to 332 BC, a time of foreign invasions, resurgences, and the last native pharaohs. This was the third intermediary period from 1077 to 664 BC. Egypt was divided between Tanis in the north, which is where they find in Indiana Jones, where he puts the staff down and the light shines through. That's in Tanis. In the north, and Thebes in the south. Libyan dynasties took power in the Delta. They were the 22nd and the 23rd dynasties. Egyptian culture persisted, but central authority was weak. And this time, Nubian kings from the Kush invaded and founded the 25th dynasty. They styled themselves as pharaohs, built pyramids, and restored temples. Then we had the Assyrian invasions, the Assyrian Empire under Asharidan and Asbanipal invaded. They sacked Thebes and installed puppet rulers. The Assyrians didn't stay long. Their empire was overstretched. And then we had the Sate resistance, which reunified Egypt. This was around 664 BC to 525, sorry. And they reunified Egypt, moved the capital again. Are you keeping up with the capital getting moved? The capital got moved every couple of years. Every 1,000 years they moved the capital. It seems like a lot. They moved it to Sais, and they encouraged a cultural revival of old kingdom traditions. Art, religion, and building projects mimicked our ancient styles. Greek mercenaries and traders were welcomed, especially Nakratis, a Greek-Egyptian trade hub. And Necho II began digging a canal from the Nile to the Red Sea, a forerunner of the Suez Canal, 500 years before the birth of Christ. Quite impressive, Egypt. Quite impressive. Then we had the Persian conquest between 525 to 404 BC. Egypt was conquered by Cambyses II, the son of Sirius the Great, and made what they called a satrapy of the Achaemenid Persian Empire. The Persians respected Egyptian religion, but extracted a heavy tribute. They had brief independence under a guy called Amyritius. I think that's how you pronounce it. I have no idea. Between 404 BC and 399 BC. Egypt was reconquered by Persia in 343 BC under Artaxerxes III, and Egypt remained under Persian control until the arrival of Alexander the Great in 332 BC, marking the start of the Hellenistic period. So, let's talk a little bit about the arrival of Alexander the Great. My God, we're still in 332 BC here. Okay, we haven't even hit the AD in the history of Egypt. I think I'm going to have to split this into 3 parts. I really do. I think I'm going to have another part, maybe later in the week, where I do part 2 of the history of Egypt, because otherwise I'm going to be talking for the next 2 hours. And then we'll have another episode where I go through my footage of my time in Egypt, and we can revisit some of the places that we've been talking about: the Temple of Hatshepsut, the Pyramid of Djoser, the Abu Simbel Monument, all that kind of stuff. Wow. Including my trips to the pyramids themselves, on the Giza pyramids, the Great Pyramids. Anyway, the arrival of Alexander the Great, Alexander III of Macedon, aka Alexander the Great. He invaded Egypt and he defeated the Persians at Issus. Egyptians, wary of Persian rule, welcomed him as their liberator. He visited the oracle of Amun at Siwa, where priests proclaimed him the son of Amun-Ra, reinforcing his divine right to rule. He founded Alexandria on the Mediterranean coast. Always nice to name a city after yourself. It was a grid planned city with Greek architecture, and it became Egypt's new cultural and political hub. He left Egypt in 331 BC, never to return. He died 8 years later. 8 years later, he carked it at the age of 33. And then after Alexander's death, his empire fragmented amongst his generals, and Ptolemy the First seized control of Egypt and declared himself pharaoh in 305 BC. This begins the Ptolemaic dynasty, the last native dynasty to rule Egypt. Though Greek in origin, the Ptolemies adopted many Egyptian royal customs. They called themselves pharaohs. They are depicted in Egyptian temples as traditional rulers. They merged the Greek gods with Egyptian deities, and they created Serapis, a hybrid Greek-Egyptian god. We had these two cultures merging into one kingdom. Egypt became a dual society. Greeks dominated the government, the military, and urban life in Alexandria and Naucratis, whereas native Egyptians maintained traditional rural and temple life. There was a language split, Greek for administration and elite society. Demotic and hieroglyph continues in temples amongst the Egyptian priesthood, which is why you had the Rosetta Stone, which was in hieroglyphs, it was in Coptic script, and then at the bottom it was in Greek, and it allowed people to translate from one to the other. Alexandria was seen as the intellectual capital at the time, and it hosted the legendary Library of Alexandria, which was likely funded under either Ptolemy I or Ptolemy II. And it aspires to house every text in the known world. It may have held between 400,000 to 700,000 scrolls. It was attached to the Mausoleum, a temple of muses, essentially an ancient university. Notable scholars of Alexandria include Euclid, as in mathematics, Eratosthenes, famous for geography, Galen, famous for medicine, and Ptolemy, who was famous for astronomy. The early Ptolemites expanded Egypt's influence. Control of Cyprus and eastern Libya, coastal Syria, and parts of the Aegean Sea came under the control of the Egyptian Ptolemaic pharaohs. They maintained a strong navy, and they dominated Eastern Mediterranean trade. Egypt became the breadbasket of the Greek world, exporting grain, papyrus, linen, grass, and perfumes. But then we had family chaos and decline. The Ptolemaic dynasty is particularly notorious for inbreeding, brothers, sisters, marriages. Yeah, it became tradition in order to preserve the royal blood. This was something that happened in the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. The pharaohs would marry their sisters, and that's why the dynasties kept falling apart, usually because it's not a good thing to do. Murders and betrayals were rife. Palace intrigue led to frequent coups, assassinations, and civil wars, puppet kings, and weak leadership. Increasing dependence on Roman military and diplomatic support in order to maintain power led to the reign of Queen Cleopatra VII, who reigned from 69 BC to 30 BC. She was the final pharaoh of Egypt, which is kind of cool because at least you know the name of the final pharaoh. It was Cleopatra. She was the daughter of Ptolemy XII, and Cleopatra became co-regent with her brother Ptolemy XIII in 51 BC. She was fluent in at least 7 languages, including Egyptian, which most of her dynasty never bothered to learn. She embraced the role of Isis incarnate, projecting herself as both a Hellenistic and native Egyptian ruler. After a power struggle, she was exiled and then restored to the throne with the help of her lover, Julius Caesar, to which she bore a son called Caesarion, who, interestingly enough, wasn't delivered by Caesarion. She met Caesar in 48 BC and she was allegedly smuggled into the palace, rolled in a carpet. They form both a political and a romantic alliance, and their son, who was Caesarion, who was known as Ptolemy XV, is presented as Caesar's heir and co-ruler. After Caesar's assassination in 44 BC, et tu, Brute, Cleopatra returned to Egypt, and then because Shakespeare's play needed the sequel, she got it on with Mark Antony. She formed a powerful alliance with Mark Antony, one of Rome's ruling triumvirs, they were called. Their union is both strategic and also romantic. Antony cedes eastern Roman provinces to Cleopatra's control. They present themselves as Dionysus and Isis, divine rulers of the East and West. Their relationship angers Octavian, later Augustus, Caesar's heir and Antony's rival. This led to the Battle of Actium in 31 BC, which was a decisive naval battle off the coast of western Greece. Octavian's fleet, led by Agrippa, defeated comprehensively Antony and Cleopatra's. The couple retreated to Alexandria, and in 30 BCE, Antony committed suicide after falsely hearing that Cleopatra had died. Cleopatra dies shortly afterwards, possibly by allowing an asp to bite her breast, although some scholars suggest poison or maybe suicide by dagger. Caesarion is captured, their son, not their son, the son of Cleopatra and Caesar, is captured and ordered executed by Octavian. Egypt becomes a Roman province at this point, governed by a prefect under the emperor, and that was the end of the Ptolemaic Empire, the Ptolemaic reign, the Ptolemaic kingdom. Despite the chaos, Ptolemaic Egypt left behind the Library of Alexandria, the fusion of Greek and Egyptian religion and art, colossal temples at Edfu, Philae, Dendra, and Komumbo, built in classical Egyptian style but under Greek rulers. Cleopatra's legend has been immortalized in Roman propaganda as a seductress and a threat. Shakespeare, Plutarch, and countless modern films, books, and dramas. But after Cleopatra and Mark Antony's death, Octavian, later Augustus, annexed Egypt directly, and Egypt is not made a senatorial province, but a personal possession of the emperor in Rome, governed by a prefect, reporting only to Augustus. Roman senators are banned from entering Egypt without permission, a measure to protect the control of the grain supply, as Egypt becomes the breadbasket of Rome. Egypt was one of the most important, it still is the most important, but one of the most important economic assets in the Roman Empire. Annual grain shipments from Alexandria feed a third of Rome's population. The Nile flood remains vital, and temples and officials continue tracking it as a state priority. The Red Sea ports like Berenike and Meos Homos, they boom, with Indian trade routes opening up ways to silk and spices, ivory, incense, and gemstones. Alexandria remained the second largest city in the Roman Empire after Rome. It was a hub of Greek philosophy, mathematics, and astronomy and medicine. And there was repeated damage of the Great Library under Roman rule, but it was still there. And Alexandria was home to large populations of Greeks, of Jews, of native Egyptians, but then we had the religious conflicts and the Jewish revolts, which came afterwards. Under Roman rule, sectarian tensions, they rose in Alexandria. Jewish-Greek riots broke out multiple times, notably in 38 AD and during the Kittos War of 115 and 117 AD. The Roman authorities often cracked down hard, especially under Emperor Trajan. Despite being under Rome, Egyptian temples flourished well into the 2nd century AD. Massive temples were completed or expanded at Philae, Edfu, Komumbo, and Dendra. And Roman emperors are portrayed in a pharaonic style in temple reliefs. Even Hadrian and Trajan are depicted as traditional god kings. That's Hadrian as in the guy who had built Hadrian's Wall in the UK. So the expanse of the empire at this time, the Roman Empire, all the way from the very, very north of what's now England to the south of what is now Sudan. Native Egyptian religion did persist at this time alongside Greco-Roman cults like the Serapis cult, which is the Greco-Egyptian god I mentioned earlier, Isis, whose cult spreads across the entire empire. But by the late 2nd century, Christianity had begun to spread rapidly in Egypt, particularly in Alexandria, and early church fathers like Clement of Alexandria and Origen teach in Alexandria at the time. Persecutions of Christians occur periodically, and the Coptic Church does emerge in the 3rd century with scriptures written in Coptic, an evolution of Egyptian written with Greek letters. Saint Anthony the Great, an Egyptian, founded Christian monasticism, monasteries, in the eastern desert. And this led to the decline of pagan culture under Emperor Theodosius I in 391 AD. Pagan temples are closed across the empire, and a lot of them are defaced, vandalized, and some of them are ruined. The Temple of Serapis in Alexandria is destroyed by a Christian mob, marking the symbolic end of the ancient religious world. The Great Library may have suffered some major damage around this time. In 395 AD, the Roman Empire is formally divided. Egypt becomes part of the Byzantine Empire, or the Eastern Roman Empire. Alexandria becomes a flashpoint for doctrinal Christian conflict and a power struggle between church and the state, which then led to the Arab conquest of Egypt from 639 to 642, which I will continue on about next time, because I'm going to split this history up, because I realise it's past 8 o'clock and I've had no dinner and I want to eat. What do you expect? I'm talking about Egypt. It's one of my favourite countries in the world. This is why it's one of my favourite countries in the world, because there's so much. There's just so much. I have barely scratched the surface on the history of the place. Just telling you, like, spending 10 minutes, if that, talking about the Old Kingdom just does not give it justice to how much shit went down. Like, how many things happened, how many people came and went, and inventions, science, technology, engineering. I haven't brushed on how the fucking pyramids were built, or how mind-blowing it is to go to these temples and seeing these pillars that they managed to put up one piece. They're not split into bits. It's one fucking piece of giant stone, and it's so big you can fit 6 people holding hands around the column, and it goes up really fucking high. And you're like, how is this one piece of stone all across the Greek world, the Roman world, even going into Iran, into ancient Persia? When they built pillars, they built them like in blocks. Like, there was the bottom block, and then the block on top of that, and then a block on top of that. A clever way of stopping your temple from falling down was to have a hole in the middle of each block as you put it in place. You know, each spherical block. Bum, 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 bum. Get to the top. You got a hole going all the way down. Pour molten lead down the hole. Why'd you do that? Well, so when there's an earthquake, it can move a little bit. It won't just break off in two and fall over. Very clever, very clever. But those Egyptian monuments and temples where it's just like one piece of stone, like it is mind-blowing how they built the pyramids. Like, you go to the Great Pyramid of Egypt, and if you're so inclined to climb it, I wouldn't recommend it. You might get banned from Egypt for life if you did. Don't know anyone who's actually climbed it. But the stones get bigger as you get higher. The higher you go up, the stones get bigger. They put the biggest ones on the top, the smaller ones down below. It is, honestly, that whole, that structure, or any of the structures, there's quite a few big-assed pyramids in Egypt. If they are out by like an inch, the structure will fall in. Like they're so meticulously designed and put together, and it is just a incredible monument to human ingenuity. And that's why I get really wound up when people say they were built by aliens, because I'm like, fuck off. You know, it was clearly built by humans using the tools they had at the time. No, they couldn't have got it this flat without having lasers. No, they could have just dug a trench around it and filled it with water and made it all to the same level as the water. That's how they could have done it. But yeah, absolutely remarkable civilization. I'm going to come back later, not today, but another time to do part 2 of this, where I'll finish off the history and I'll introduce a little bit of my time in Egypt and talk about that. And then I'll do part 3 later on, where I will actually get into my time in Egypt, where I've been, what I've done, and how much I want to recommend it to everyone. So there you go. I honestly, I'm sorry. I know I've been rabbiting on for over an hour and a half now, but it's just not long enough. Egypt is, I call this Hughes of the world. Enough things have happened in Egypt over the years to, you know, put most countries in the world to shame. And I've got to say, like, I really enjoy it. Like, I really enjoy going to Egypt. I want to go back. I want to go back as soon as possible. I've been there a few times now, and I always have a good time. I always have a good time in Egypt. Always a lot of fun. Thanks so much. Graham says, Diz, Joanne, you're a star. Joanna, it's very interesting. You're a clever and interesting cookie. Speak tomorrow. Oh, that's really nice. And then Peter Music, I also had a squint. No one did anything messed bad with my vision. I was a handgun shooter before the ban and had to learn to shoot off. Wow, that's interesting. Saz just says, thank you, Graham. Much appreciated. And a little wave. Okay, well, listen, I'm going to bugger off now. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock with Morning Brew. Please tune in and watch that. And if you've enjoyed this, let other people know. You know, there's a channel, and Graham chunders on about the history and the politics of different countries each week. I don't know when I'm going to do part 2 of this. I don't want to make this spread out over 3 weeks. I think that's too much. So what I might do is have a think about what video I'm going to show, and maybe next week I'll finish off. So we've taken it all the way through prehistory, the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, New Kingdom, Ptolemaic, the Greek rulers, the Roman rulers, until the fall of Rome. And now we're going to take it all the way up to, we're going to start next time with the coming of the Arabs and the Muslimification of the nation of Egypt. Like button before you go. Yeah, if you could do me one little favor, give us a like before you go if you've enjoyed this. And Akra Dave says, try China, Graham, we'll be here forever. I've already done a China one, and I feel like I should go back over it to just get back into it, because it's, again, there's just so much more to say. So many things to talk about. It's just so interesting. Because you talk about the history, and I don't want it to just be like, oh yeah, well, you know, this pharaoh was on the throne, and then some other pharaoh was on the throne, and then so it's boring. I want to talk about the culture. I want to talk about the art. I want to talk about the literature. I want to talk about the everyday life of your average Egyptian 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago. I just find it really fascinating, and how many things that you find when you study this stuff. Like the parallels with today, and the people had the same problems, they had the same things that they were worried about, the same feelings for their friends, their family, their neighbors, their rivals, their lovers. You know, it's just nothing new under the sun. I just find it fascinating, and I love having that connection. I love having that connection to the deep, deep past. I have a special well of gratitude to the ancient Egyptians for writing everything down in stone. You know, and on papyrus, but the stone is even better. They wrote it all down. They wrote everything down. Their everyday life. We know so much about Egypt. Ancient Egypt was the America of its day. You know the way America makes a movie about everything it does? Like, it does a good thing, makes a movie. It does a bad thing, makes a movie. Does something. Oh, we make a movie about that. Remember that time that thing happened? Yeah, let's make a movie out of it. That's the equivalent of Egypt. Egypt was like, wow, we got to tell people about this. Also, before I go, ancient languages tend to be written from bottom up or from right to left, whereas we write from left to right. The reason why we write from left to right is so you don't smudge what you've written, right? Because obviously, if you're writing that way and you've got your hand on the page, you'll smudge what you've written. What I find interesting is older languages tend to not go from the left to the right, but from the right to the left. I know Roman obviously goes from the left to the right, but I think this is to do with the fact that when you're chiseling something away, you tend to hold the chisel with your left hand and you tend to hit it with the right hand. Now try doing that. Yeah, doesn't work, does it? So if you think about it, going that way makes more sense. And on that bombshell, I will say thank you so much for watching. I'll be back at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Stay happy, stay beautiful. Don't let the bastards grind you down. And we'll be back tomorrow with not just Morning Brew, but also the agenda. And also Friday night social. Can't wait. See you then. Until then, I'll say thanks for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.